Mom of three now grown adults who live on the West Coast because they must hate us. We live on the East Coast, but anyway, no, they're good kids. I was here with my husband, Richard, back in 2013. And to give you a little background, my husband was diagnosed with MS when he was 25 years old. He dropped a pot and called his dad and said something's not right. And his dad also had MS and said, I think you need to go see a doctor, a neurologist. And he was diagnosed, and at that time there was no treatment available for anybody with MS. He has secondary progressive, and there's still no treatment available. And the doctor said to him basically, go home. There's nothing we can do for you. And he spent years having no hope whatsoever. And then Dr. Smith invited us to this conference back in 2013. And we came as a family to talk about Richard's illness and to learn from others. And we found such a wonderful group of people here, scientists, researchers, doctors, philanthropists, leaders of faith, and they embraced us. And Richard actually met the man who is now his neurologist, Dr. Sadiq, at this very conference. And he left here with hope. In fact, he has a book coming out next Wednesday, not to promote it, but it's called Chasing Hope. And it is the direct result of what happened to him as a person living with illness and being part of this group. So I thank you all who were here then, or all of you who are here now. It means a great deal, this conference, to people living with illness and to their families, because ultimately I believe that illness is a family affair. We deal with it every day, all of the challenges, and we do it with love for each other. And on that note, our next speaker, Vieira, proves how a mother's love has absolutely no limits. When her 14-year-old daughter, Allie, was diagnosed with NMO, a devastating and rare autoimmune disease of the central nervous system that is often confused with MS, it is not MS, Vieira refused to accept the lack of research and limited treatment for her daughter. Instead of lamenting her daughter's disease, Vieira turned to action by starting the Guthy-Jackson Charitable Foundation. Over the past decade, Vieira has built an extensive network of doctors, researchers, patients, and advocates, and created a new approach to NMO and other rare diseases. So let's take a closer look at Vieira, Allie, and their family's story.
Imagine you're a normal, happy child, part of a picture-perfect family. As a youngster, the world is your oyster with unlimited possibilities. Then one day, as a young teenager, the world changes.
And we were in the car driving, totally normal day, and out of nowhere, I just felt this weight fall onto my eyeball. It's like the weirdest sensation, just this heaviness. I believe it was the next morning I started to wake up with a little vision loss.
Neither Allie Guthy or her mom, Vieira-Jackson, realized it at the time, but that was the first of what was to become numerous bouts of optic neuritis and transverse myelitis, painful spinal cord inflammation that's often misdiagnosed as multiple sclerosis. But Allie actually had an extremely rare autoimmune disease, neuromyelitis optica, or NMO.
To watch your child be in that kind of pain and not know if every time is she going to go back to normal? Is it going to not only abate the pain, but is it going to, will she be fine again?
That's not a mother being overly dramatic. When Allie was first diagnosed, doctors gave her 4 years to live, and painfully little was known then about NMO. That's when Vieira said no one, and especially not her daughter, was dying on her watch. So she went to see one of the few scientists working on NMO, Dr. Brian Weinschenker at the Mayo Clinic.
I said, are you doing any research? And he said, yes, I am doing some research. And I'm like, great. Well, I'm a woman with a checkbook. I'm a mom on a mission. You're doing research. We're going to get to know each other. And I'm going to start a foundation. And I'm going to find a cure for this disease.
That was the beginning of the Guthy-Jackson Charitable Foundation. It has spurred tremendous knowledge about NMO and the autoimmune process. They've created a biorepository for blood samples from thousands of NMO and MS patients. They've created and funded patient conferences, a pharmaceutical industry council, and annual international scientific meetings, insisting that everyone involved share their data. It's been 10 years since Allie's diagnosis. Aggressive disease management has allowed Allie to go to college, be the president of the Student Government Association, and she's now a first-year law student at UCLA. Still, there's no cure.
And so I would be lying if I said I didn't have those days where, everybody has that, where, I have a cramp in my back and I'm, it's just a back cramp, but my mind, goes through all the what ifs of, what if, this is the one that I don't come back from.
So Allie leads her best life, a little in denial, but comforted in the knowledge that even if a cure doesn't come for her, she will have helped others.
We are at the threshold of rewriting the future for all those who now and one day will be impacted by autoimmune diseases. I'm Allie Guthy, and I have NMO, and I'm just so honored to be a part of it and to know that my experience, will hopefully bring peace and love and happiness to other lives. Is just, that's what gets me through it.
It's also what drives Victoria, keeping Allie and all the other NMO patients in mind, patient centricity.
Well, to me, it's always been about the patients. You can't just do the research in a vacuum with really understanding what's going on with the patients, and you need not only their hearts, their souls, their engagement, their information. That's the key. I've always believed if you set an intention, and for me, through the power of love and very clear intention, that I was going to find a cure, not only for my daughter, but for everyone who has this disease.
Ten years ago, your daughter was given this terrible diagnosis. Yes. 10 years later, she's not here because she's taking her exams, finishing her first year of law school, which is just wonderful for you to hear as a mom, given the fact that in 2008, when she was diagnosed, your doctor said to you, if it were my daughter, I would go into denial, right, and I would just appreciate the days we have left.
It's a little bit ironic that obviously there would be some technical difficulties because I've certainly faced the challenges. First, I have to say I'm just so excited to be here, honored, humbled, to give voice to a rare disease that just doesn't get that kind of conversation at all. And
I don't think most people have heard of it.
Nobody has heard of it. Disease. It's usually misdiagnosed. And 10 years ago, yes, my life changed. I was in a completely different business. As I said, I was in the beauty business, and I went from mascara to medicine in a moment. And life changed, and it's been an extraordinary journey. And to just even be able to share some of that is extraordinary.
But how do you do that, Victoria? When your doctor said denial, you said no. You went to your husband, Bill, and you said, we're going to start a foundation. He said, I'll be the funder, you be the finder. You find people in the medical community, researchers, right, scientists, and somehow bring them together to come up with treatments for this disease and ultimately the solution.
Well, how perfect that we're all gathered in this room for Unite to Cure. To me, that was just how it was going to be from the beginning. We were going to collaborate and Unite to Cure, and I'm sure there's many parents that are sitting in this room and yourself, and when you have a child, what you can do with the power of love and intention, and as I said, nobody was going to die on my watch. I wasn't going to allow that to happen, and even though I had absolutely no background at all in the world of medicine, as I said, I was in the beauty business, what I did have is the heart of a mother. I'm a warrior by nature, and I was not going to let anything happen to my child. I had no idea what it would turn into. If somebody would have told me that 10 years later, that, thank goodness, my daughter, although she's immunosuppressed and taking still more pills in a day than I would like, but that I would be sitting here honored to be in front of all of you to share this story, I would have never believed it. And I do hope if I can leave anything when I'll walk out the door later on is that anything is possible, that you never know what difficulty you're going to face and how you deal with it.
You talk about going from mascara to medicine. You didn't know anything when you started this foundation. So what was the goal?
the goal was to find a cure. So, and it was exactly as this conference is, Unite to Cure. It was all about getting people to work together and collaborate. And you know, when you haven't, I was not a high school graduate. I was a victim of a violent crime early on in life. I did not go to college. So when you're sort of have this fearless, or as I call myself, the fearful warrior, you're not afraid to ask the questions. And I just said, I'm going to learn everything that I have to. My first walking on the college campus was Stanford, and it was a meeting with a group of molecular scientists and biologists, and I started learning about NMO, and I started to bring the smartest people that I could reach out to. And it was important that I had to reach, to get the brain trust in the room, I had to reach out into their hearts to get them really to come together.
Is that why they listen to you? Because I would think they'd go, you're not equipped to do this. We're the ones who are equipped.
You know what it was, Meredith? I think everybody saw that I didn't have anything to gain. We are self-funded. We've been very fortunate and blessed that the whole requirement was that everyone was going to have to share, and that I was in it to win it for my daughter and for everybody else that has this rare disease. And I think when people saw that humanity and just the heart and the warrior spirit in that, and I let everybody come together and said, help me grow this. You tell me who you want in the room, and I will have them in the room. So it's really organically, over 10 years, has turned into what my latest book called The Power of Rare, a blueprint for a medical revolution. There was no planning. It was guided truly by, I am going to find a cure, and I will find a cure. There is no doubt.
I have no
in my
doubt you
mind.
will either. I mean, you are determined. You are a mom on a mission,
I am.
for sure. But scientists, researchers tend to be very protective of their research.
Yes.
And even if you put a human face to this illness and you had, I'm going to do this, there's still that silo approach.
Yes. I think what's also unique about this, and not that you ever, wish to have a rare disease, but clearly this disease, we're the only foundation in the world for this condition, which affects about 500,000 people worldwide. And in the beginning, they said, well, there's probably 1 in 100,000 people that have this, because it was misdiagnosed. It was originally known as Devick's disease, and then neuromyelitis optica. But it's usually 95% of the patients, very sadly, are diagnosed with MS. And so they're not getting the proper treatments. So that in itself was being the only foundation, there was quite a mission of not only getting the right diagnosis, the right standard of care, but I realized that I was also going to have to start my own biobank, my own biorepository with all the blood specimens, samples, and I started my own data collection center. So everything is standardized. Now, it sounds as I'm speaking, and it just sort of happened that it made sense to me as a businesswoman that these are the steps that you need to do. And I went through it very systematically, knowing that at the time, my daughter was still suffering. She had 16 transverse myelitis attacks. And that's the part of NMO that is so frightening, is I would never know when an attack is coming. There's no warning. Is she going to be able to walk again? She's had 2 optic neuritis attacks where all of a sudden she loses her vision with no warning. So to kind of navigate both worlds, but I can tell you, and I know to the doctors, the researchers, the scientists, the parents in the room, when you see your child suffer, there is nothing that you won't do.
But there is such a sense of urgency as well
Yes.
with every decision that you make.
We were told that Allie had 4 years to live. And also, very uniquely in this situation, which had a lot of unique challenges, was also my daughter did not want to know what she had. So when she was diagnosed, she said, "Oh, Mom, I know you. You'll figure it out. You'll come up with it." And my husband and I were walking around, or 24 hours because we weren't exactly sleeping, knowing, wow, she's been given 4 years to live. How can this be? So it was really having to make it be okay for her, at the same time, start this mission.
How has your foundation changed the face of NMO and how it is treated?
I think it's completely changed not only the landscape of NMO, but other autoimmune diseases and other, not even autoimmune diseases, but how we start looking at getting things done. People look at me and they go, how did you do so much? How did you get pharmaceutical companies? How did you, we now, when I hold every year, I hold an annual conference. My first conference, there was 6 doctors in a small room, very small room.
And you made the guacamole, you told me.
And I made the guacamole, and I said, nobody's leaving until I hear something that's going to, be life-changing here for some of these patients. And we started to grow this group, and through that, it's just now turned into, I just had my last conference. I represent 30 different countries, over 187 scientists, researchers worldwide. I created, if you even go on your phone, there's an app called NMO Resources, so that any patient can go and look anywhere in the world. Is a program I've created called Connect the Docs. So you will be connected to any doctor anywhere in the world if they're having an attack. So I wrote a book, a resource guide on everything about the disease. So it all made sense to me, Meredith, that these are things that I expected that other diseases would be doing.
You also connected patients with patients, so that people who had probably felt they were the only ones discovered they were part of a much larger community and could dialogue with each other.
Absolutely. I thought in the beginning, I was just trying to find one other person. Just can you imagine that? Your child's been diagnosed with something, to find one other patient. And I finally found that a woman who was going off, she was raising money to go to India for stem cells. And I met with her and I thought, I've got to start opening this up to the world. My daughter said, Mom, this isn't just about you and I anymore. This is about everybody with NMO. And then as anything, you start to find out there's a lot more people that had it than we thought. And every year, I bring all the patients together. We fly in about 400 patients and all of their families. We do, the way I had to really create my biobank, was for blood draws, is I brought some of my old life in the beauty business as a makeup artist, and I would say, blush for blood, and we would do makeovers and anything to start creating that biobank. But we have a very strong patient community now. Anybody diagnosed worldwide. We just had our first conference in Mali in Africa. I did my kind of Mali, alley to Mali, a little bit corny, but we had 23 African nations represented, and we still are the only foundation in the world with a global reach. And I have to tell you that just that power of love and intention and growing something that way, I see these countries come together in a way that people don't collaborate and work. They all share information. Everybody has to share. It's open access. Nobody is funded. And I will say the power not only of love and intention, but your checkbook. My husband and I have spent a lot of money, it's our own money, self-funded, to make sure that if we're writing checks, that everybody plays by the rules. And they do it because I can see it's become personal now and they're invested. And I bring on patient day, all the pharmaceutical companies together with the patients so that they see the patients, they talk to them, they help create the designs for the trials. That's all integrated. Everybody's working together. Because if you don't,
Well, that's one of the things that I think is so smart about what you've done. You don't make anybody the enemy here.
Yeah.
You don't say it's me against the drug companies or me against the researchers who won't share information. It's very inclusive.
yeah, absolutely.
And it has to be to get
It has
things
to
done.
be. There is no big pharma that are the bad guys. It's, there are going to be trials that maybe people aren't going to love the way they're designed, but they come together, they're part of the process, and they have to be advocates for themselves.
But you've said also, Victoria, that you came with that built-in addition of money.
Yes.
And money talks, it does, when you're dealing
Yes, it
with
does.
things like this. So for folks out there that don't have access to that, how do they begin to do some of what you have done successfully?
Well, you know what? Everybody has access to their voice. And I've had people that have called me and said, well, I haven't been able to spend the kind of money you have, and I can't do what you do. And I go, nope, stop. Yes, you can. You can start being your advocate for yourself. You can start creating your own community of people around you to help support you. It's just, you have to do it. And that's what I always encourage. Yes, it's been extraordinary, and we all know the power of money and the way I've been able to organize it. But when you have that within yourself, and especially patients who want to really make a better life for themselves, you have to use that voice. You have to reach out. You have to empower yourself. And every patient day, I bring in all the experts from all the universities all around the world that are experts in the world of NMO, and they have access to educate themselves. And in the afternoons, there's breakout sessions so that they're going to learn more about mindfulness, how to navigate insurance, all the different, understanding the science of NMO. And those are all the ways that they can then take that and harness that and make different decisions, and hopefully better decisions for themselves.
Where does your hope come from as a mother and the person who runs this foundation on a bad day for your daughter, or when things aren't moving fast enough for you?
You know, early on, people said to me, well, you know, you got to remember, Victoria, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And I'm like, we're sprinting, we're going. It's hard. When she's had an attacks, I'm not going to lie, there's the times where I have to let myself sort of fall down and just curl up, and, I still have probably not the greatest sleep habits from losing a lot of nights of sleep, where I would keep myself up at night to walk down the hall to see if the light was on under the door in her room, because I knew she'd be having an attack and wouldn't want to wake me up. So it's hard. I'm not going to tell you it's not. You're wearing all those different hats. But when I hold my patients' days and I see the way pharma and doctors and people are working together, that's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me going and knowing. And when I look in my daughter's eyes, I know that I'll never give up. And I just can't tell you enough. I mean, to be on this hallowed ground, I don't even like to fly. So
You were supposed to come here once before, you didn't get on the plane, so this is a big thing.
So it's a big thing for me, and there's nothing that I won't do to help the community of NMO and my daughter.
Do you think we are close to a cure for NMO? Do you see it?
I think we are so close to not only a cure for NMO, but for so many things. And my hope and spirit, and I know when I watch people working together, that when you put so many, as I'll call smarty pants, like all of you in a room, there's nothing that you can't do. There's really nothing that you can't do. So I think so many diseases, illnesses, the spirit of which the loneliness and the depression and things that people suffer with, when people start understanding disease in a different way and working together in a different way, I think
What's that going to
it'll be
take?
amazing.
You've done it, but there are probably many people who have not. What's the message to the philanthropists out here in terms of approaching illness in a different way?
I think it's to the philanthropists, I tell you, don't just write those big checks and not know where it goes. Insist and that you understand, that you make sure that it is being directed in a way that it's not going to crazy overheads or titles for people. Nothing, any amount of money that goes into my foundation, 100%, it's science-based, and it is bench to bedside. If it is not translational, it is not going to mean a cure for that patient, if it's not going to change their life, don't fund it.
Victoria-Jackson, thank you so much. You're fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
And good luck to Allie with her exams.
Thank you very much. Thank you.